It's 6:30 on Monday, August 5th, 2024, and I'd like to call to order our meeting of the Citizens Code Enforcement for this evening. Let's have a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Member roll call. Start over on the left.
Blaine Armstrong, here. Nicole Harden, here.
Rob Ward here,
Nikki Wood, here.
Dennis Harper here.
Shania Stratton here.
and is Cassie with us on the Zoom call?
She is.
So we're all present. Right. The first item on the work session agenda is to discuss processes and the dog. Kristen, did you have anything you wanted to say about that?
I believe the processes were not excuse me, were not solidified from last meeting, so I didn't know if there was some follow-up you wanted with that.
Right, so we did discuss them at our last meeting, and there were some recommendations for some alterations by committee members and some of the public. And I did not go through and edit that. And I would have done it today, but that would be too late to distribute it for the meeting, so I'd be happy to do that for a future meeting if you like.
So were we set on what needs to be edited? As far as I understood that we just kind of read through it.
Yeah, we kind of went through it. There was a recommendation from you to ask other cities for their approach to logging complaints in their process. There was a recommendation that we look into creating electronic filing of violation complaints and upload evidence with those.
So for the uploading, apparently with the requirement for the Northwest Code, they also do code enforcement. I was not on that training with Tina today. So there is more options, I guess, with this requirement of.
I think that's just for violations of the specialty codes, the building, electrical, and plumbing codes.
Okay.
But it might be something that could be used more broadly. I've certainly used software for things that was never intended for. It'd be a great option if it could be used that way.
Mhm. And then with the log, so you all have a copy, I believe, if you don't, here's one, of what I put into Excel. I've collapsed the columns with the identifying information. If there's something more that you're wanting out of that, or you want to do something different, at least everything is now up to date, currently logged. And going forward, we will have a new sheet that is going to be by month instead of it all being in one tab. So it's organized by date and not by number. And then going forward, it will be by date and number.
I would think that it would maybe need, maybe not names, but addresses. There's a lot of work that's been put into this. I can see that. It's great. But a lot of music on 15th Street. No address, RV parks in front of the home.
There are addresses. We can't publicly publish people's addresses.
This is so that nobody in particular is.
Okay, but it is on record.
This is really good.
That's a lot of work.
Well, this is not like the type of meeting where we're having hearing or we're voting on anything. It's a work session, so.
So on this here, some of the things, are you listing all the complaints or are people that contact you? Because some of these, I don't, they don't belong to me. Like request from Oregon Ethics Commission for audio recording for complaints.
If somebody is making a complaint, they are logged. If somebody is calling with a complaint, if somebody is writing a complaint, all complaints are logged into this.
That's not a complaint. That's not a complaint. It says request from Oregon Ethics Commission for an audio recording.
Which,
It's page, it's number 24-42.
Guess what happened? Somebody complained to the ethics commission. And they asked the city.
Yes, but so is this a log of everything, or it's nothing that, it's not a nuisance complaint, it's nothing like that, this is just everything?
those are all complaints that I have. If you would like me to organize them by type, that would be it.
No, not right, I mean, it's just like request from Oregon, and then the 24-43 for minutes. That's request, that's not a complaint.
It's in regard to a complaint, I
But
would
the
imagine.
complaint was probably against the council, not citizens.
I think it's important to see all of the calls that you're getting, all of the complaints that are being made, and so that we are identifying what type of calls you're getting. If you don't want those type of calls on here, then that's fine. I'm happy to segregate them.
No, I should, like, I thought this would be pending claims that something this board or this work we can take care of, not all the calls that your office gets, because like speeding on, speeding, that's nothing we're able to do, but it shows your volume of work maybe.
That doesn't show my volume of work. Those show the complaints. So the amount of calls I get are probably 3 or 4 times that on a daily basis. So some of those, they don't get written. If somebody writes a physical complaint, I log it.
Okay.
And prior to me, some of this stuff, March, April, May, June was not me. So if it was taken, I just logged all of what was there. And then going forward, if somebody has like an ethics issue, I would point them in the direction of the proper channel, or I have, just by giving education, detoured people from making complaints because they didn't know processes. So this is just everything. And then I thought that way we could have, that's why the work session, so we can have a discussion on like, what is it that you want out of this log? If you only want pending things, most of them are pending. This was black and white, so I did color code the ones that had been dismissed. There wasn't very many, but you can kind of tell like on the first sheet, how some of them are darker, that those were closed cases because those were green. And then there wasn't very many. Page 2 has another one, page 3 has a couple. Page 4 has a couple. Yes.
In regards to the laws. So for the month of July, for example, I thought we were going to have the status of said complaint, like investigated or letter sent, or letter sent, like waiting for the 7 to 14 days, or we have the notice of non-compliance. I thought it would be more of like a where we're at on each complaint kind of thing, instead of just the complaint. And if it's like these ones that have been finished, I like that. But the ones like in July, like we wouldn't know where you're at on it,
So is the expectation that as soon as I started, that I started right in on code enforcement, because I've just barely gotten to understand the job, let alone get into complaints, and they were all over the office. I tried to clean the office in order to even
I'm
get to
not,
this
I'm not
point.
saying you've done anything wrong at this point. I'm just saying that going forward, it would be nice to have. You know, if they're talking about, let's say, for example, the 5 RVs all using sewer power, and you say, I went there, everything looks good, or I went there and I noticed the problem, you sent a letter, so letter sent. Just a simple, so because when we look at this, we see, oh, cool, there's all these complaints, but we don't know where we're at on any of them.
That's where we're at on all of them.
Okay,
What is there?
So these have been taken in and registered, but nothing aside from that is done
Correct.
at this point.
Correct.
We gotta go to A before we get to B. I get it. This is a lot of work.
So it would seem like me that the next step would be to classify these under what we talked about the last time, whether it was a health and safety issue or a nuisance issue, or however else they're classified, so that we could have a list of them. We could decide which ones were the most important, and we could actually start working on getting some of them taken care of.
I have a question. Here we have a lot of complaints. And we can talk about what we want to do. All day. How do we enforce it? I know we have a city attorney. There's a lot of these that he could say, hey, you're in jeopardy of fines, liens, whatever. But some of these are smaller. And we have no way. We can't go up and tell this guy in RV that's parked using electricity from the home, tell him you can't do that. It's actually 30 minutes for an RV to be parked on a public street for loading and unloading. Here's your ticket, or here's your thing you have to move. If they don't move, what do we do? How are we going to enforce it? That's the whole thing. She's overwhelmed. I've had a lot of talks. She's doing the best she can. But 5 RVs residing on a single family property. Do we turn that over to the city attorney, which I would think that would be smart? Some of these things are fines. How do we move forward on resolving these? We can talk about them all day, but how do we resolve them?
I thought we sent a letter first, and then that it was illustrated in the past, according to people's experiences, when it was working better, that sending a letter would cause some people to go, oh, okay, oops, and they'd take care of that. And then if the first letter wasn't sent, a second one would be saying, okay, now you're going to start, paying a fine, so and so. And then we needed a hearings officer too, right?
Right, because the second notice is the one that says, okay, we asked you to fix it, you didn't, now we're imposing fines. At that point, they have to have an opportunity to have a hearing of some point,
Right.
of some kind, rather. So
So how do we get to that point?
So we need to have a hearings officer that requires finishing a job description for.
We have one.
You have one?
We have one.
Okay, so we have a job description.
no, she's saying we have a hearings officer.
We have a hearings officer.
We have a hearings officer who has a contract with us already,
Oh, great.
so that we do not have to go through that process. And it's Gary Milliman, who also does Port Orford, Brookings, and some other places. It's by Zoom, $300 a day, as many cases as you can put in a day.
I do have a question on that. Do you have a copy of that contract?
Mhm.
When was it signed?
I don't know.
Because,
I sent it over to our city attorney just to make sure it was still valid.
I mean, it wasn't signed when I've been in council
No.
for a year.
It
And
was over two.
Then our attorney.
so
told us
it's
that
like
it
an
wasn't signed, but
indefinite contract. I've never heard of a contract without an end date or something like that. I don't know.
I think that, what, I can check, but he's willing to do it.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
willing to do it, and it being that it would just be renewing the contract. Even if it's expired.
Every year when they do all the. That was when they do all the other contracts.
So since there is potentially a hearing officer that we can use, then that means we could actually
Sorry, I shouldn't say.
Start sending out letters.
start sending out notice of failure to comply on some sample cases. Because what the committee had said it wanted to do was to try the process, see if it worked with some cases and monitor how it's working.
So are we gonna pick the health and safety violations first then? Like, I know we discussed that that was probably the worst thing, because like, but one of the ones that I'm concerned with, that's nuisance. But somebody else, like the people on Bull Run that, that had that house and now they've got rats and fire hazard and squatters, that's obviously more important. And this other lady that came in, the Mike with his drug dealing and that other lady that came in with the neighbor's house flooding theirs, those would be pretty important. So do we classify them, according to the severity or the type of violation, like health and safety, and then send the letters out according to the most important ones? Or do we do the ones that have been reported long enough or, for the longest time, or how do we do that next step?
Well, it's up to us to make a recommendation along those lines. And earlier, when we discussed prioritization, there was a strong consensus that threats to health and safety should be the priority to be addressed.
I think that health and safety is important, but community impact is also important. Like, I'm sure everybody is aware of my situation where I live. I had to move today because of and this is not a short-term problem that we've had. The sewage and the RV, the 5 RVs in there. Community impact has to have the loud music on 15th Street. Well, some people get, pinched up really easy. There's a lot of these that are health and safety.
Like the house on Bull Run.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I was talking to the city manager earlier today about like evidence and the ease of which it could be addressed in our ordinance. If she peers from the street and can't see the problem, it's a whole different level of work than just saying, here's a couple of pictures, here's the evidence. So I think also the ease of or the amount of evidence should be taken into consideration. What, Krista, is your input on that?
On the evidence,
Well, just on like where to start. with all the complaints.
well, where to start is if you need warrants, you need a hearings officer to issue the warrants if people are not giving you permission to look at the property. So you're only viewing some of the complaint from what you can see from the road. The getting out into the field and getting all of this evidence, I'm really struggling to see where I even have the time to do that. I mean, I'm not even taking lunch breaks at this time. So honestly, I mean, this is just my recommendation is to recommend to the council that instead of hiring a city clerk, that you hire code enforcement. Because at least that way you'll have a lot of public support with that. I'm willing to take on the duties, and I know that's a whole nother thing, but you would have somebody following the cases, you would have case build up, and I understand that that was also assigned to me. I just don't, at this point, know how I'm supposed to even get out into the field.
I'll help with that.
And so if we have volunteers, we have to have them vetted, like an employee, and also insurance, which is fine, but we need people that are trained as well, so that we're not having liability issues.
And I think that speaks volumes to. I think that speaks volumes to what she's saying, is that she's willing to work harder at the office, what needs to be done, but we do need and I mean, this would be for the council. At least, that to get a planning person who, whether it's full-time or something, so that they would have a sheet and do a checklist and show the different steps and keep everything on track. I personally believe that yes, it's health, safety, but I think quality of life for the residents here in Lakeside, for the public, is just as important to someone who is not getting sleep, or the quality of life for them should be taken, not put at the bottom of the barrel, because I think then the public could say, you're paying favoritism, or it's because of this person or that person. I think everyone that comes in should be addressed. Now, the speeding too fast, I mean, you know, we're gonna have to do a better way of logging. There could be complaints, like I don't like the sign outside versus, you know, the trash and all that kind of stuff, because those are the ones I think the community should be addressing. But I think that, that speaks volumes for you willing to do this, to work short staff, to make sure the citizens of Lakeside are actually being helped. And that's something I think the council needs to address before you, I think you just publish a job or something. But I think the council needs to seriously look at. And to me, when I work, is you ask the person who's doing the job with you, telling what she needs for the benefit of the city. So,
Like a lunch break. Should be taking a lunch break.
Just call it.
and I think we need qualified people, not just volunteers. You know, I couldn't volunteer to go in and do this because it would take her longer to train me on what you need to do. So everybody could have a good heart, but I think we need a trained, qualified person.
I do know somebody that might be interested in that. He was an ex-New York police hostage negotiator. Very
See,
good.
that's what somebody said to me once, and I don't remember who, so take this for what it's worth. But they said in a lot of towns, they found a retired policeman who had extra time and didn't really have anything to do, and that they oftentimes would be happy to take up that sort of a position.
Almost on a volunteer.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was told, of course,
I'll have him get.
something that I was told, you know, but.
And then there's something else, I know I said that all should be investigated. I think the ones that you can't see, if you had to prioritize them, I think the health, the safety and quality of life would come before somebody where you have to go on administrative search warrant. Because I know other, like Coos County did, if they couldn't see it, standing on the highest spot of the neighbor's house and looking over and stuff, that would get the lowest priority. If you had to only do, if you had 10, you could do, and number 11 and 12 were complaints, but you couldn't see them and they're not a nuisance to your eye, then I think that should be the 11 and 12. But that's just.
Excuse me, we're having a request on Zoom that people who are speaking, one, can't be heard, and two, that people aren't familiar with who you are. So if you could just say maybe again who you are, so people know. Probably, I don't know.
And for recording minutes too.
And for recording minutes as well.
So kind of what I'm getting right now is, we're dead in the water until the code enforcement officers.
Not particularly, I don't think. I think you can still recommend policy and still have everything ready to go.
Some of this could be handled by the city attorney, is that correct?
Like what?
Or the, well, garage built on property line, 2432. That comes into planning commission and they can take that up with the city. I mean, there's just.
Because of the easement from the property line, that's written up in.
So we have $10,000 contract for the year for the attorney.
Does that go hourly?
And that's mainly for legal defense for the city, or recommending ordinances and things like that. If we were to, yeah.
Well, can we get some of the first letters, the letters that you send out saying, hey, your garage is on the property line, or hey, your tree fell in the neighbor's garage or whatever, and you need to fix this. This is the first letter. Can we get to where we've gotten letters out. And so we've actually taken a first step, and maybe some of the people at that point will go, oh, shoot, they want me to, and then they'll do it. Can we get a letter drafted?
That's the first step.
That's the first step, yeah.
Is it the recommendation that we use Mr. Milliman as our hearings officer? Wouldn't that go to council then for approval to approve the recertification of that contract and that agreement?
From what you were saying, you already had a contract with them.
It
so-
wasn't severed, but you were asking the date. I haven't looked at it. He just sent me an email saying we never severed the agreement. And this is how it goes, that the cases will need to be set up and presented like a court. And so unless you would like to put it out for somebody else, I don't know if somebody else is willing to do that job. Is that,
Now, if he's willing, man, I think go for it. If we have somebody in here that can say, screwed up, you're gonna pay this fine, don't do it again, or it's gonna be bigger. That's gonna help us get through this list a lot faster and a lot more efficiently than just saying, hey, shouldn't do that, and a slap on the hand. I think if he's willing to do it, and he's already had a contract with us, if he's willing to keep going, give him a shot.
I don't know if that's a council issue, though.
And I.
Cassie has her hand up.
Just so you know, okay, this is Elaine. I think that when's your next council meeting? This Thursday? Is it too late to put it on the agenda for them to do it? And I mean, to make sure we're doing everything properly, to have them renew it and then have them start sending letters out. Because the last thing you want to do is send a letter out and then 4 months from now say, okay, we're going to go to step 2. You can't go to step 2 if you waited 4 months, if you gave them, in my opinion, 2 weeks. So you're going to be going and doing it again. But if the council votes to renew his contract and continue forward, then have him start. But the ordinance 24-01, did you guys pass that at your council meeting? An ordinance amending chapter 90C of the Lakeside Municipal Code, repealing ordinance 20-292 and 20-295. Did you guys pass this one?
the code enforcement?
It is in effect. I didn't listen to it.
Cassie's raised her hand.
So identifying myself, Rob Ward here. So I'm feeling some confusion here about roles. So my understanding is that the hearings officer was to conduct the hearings.
Correct.
And then adjudicate in cases where the alleged violator disagrees and says there's no violation. But that hearings officer is not going to be the person who's sending people letters.
The first
Correct.
letter.
Not the first letter or the second. Those are going to be
Correct.
coming from City Hall and so.
Yeah,
And then I heard the city manager mention that the hearings officer would want these cases set up in a certain way. So I'm guessing there's some kind of prep work involved.
Correct.
And possibly follow up or something.
Correct. And then he would also be the person to get the warrant to fact find the violation to begin with, if you need
That's
it,
necessary.
if it's necessary.
but coming down to warrants, the problem across from Mike Anderson, Mike Armstrong, the construction guy, with the in and out traffic, it's obviously not your most upstanding citizens in that area, let's put it that way. So he issues a warrant. Does that mean the sheriff's department and their dogs are gonna come out and do that warrant, or is he gonna? How does that work? I'm confused.
I think the person to ask would be Elaine, because I think,
Well, see, I think it should be, you know, the stuff, and I talked to Rob about this and Mark, that it needs to go to circuit court. And I don't know how you plan, you don't have a policy for doing administrative search warrants. And I was speaking to you that about today, that nowhere in your ordinance do you talk about administrative search warrants for how you're gonna do them and who's, who's gonna serve them. Because normally it's the issuing officer who serves them when they go to the court, so I have no. How are you gonna,
That's something we should look into.
and like Susan also brings up, the thing is the enforcement on this.
Excuse me, we have a hand raised when you're,
Again,
No,
it's Cassie.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, I thank you for bringing that up. I'm a little bit confused about the roles. We had gone over in the last two meetings, certainly in the last one, discussing the role of the hearings officer. So now I'm a little bit confused. It sounds like maybe his or her role has changed. We're using words like warrants. I don't think that we have mentioned that before. And now I'm concerned that conversations are happening outside of these meetings, talking about, yeah, I was talking to you about this today. I was talking to the mayor about this today. So I just want to make sure that maybe I haven't missed another workshop or meeting that I was unaware of, because I'm confused as well. Thank you.
I had talked to the mayor before he was mayor, like 6 months ago, when we were talking about this. So it's been over 6 months, and before he was mayor, about the ordinance and going through circuit court and how past city councils have used going through the court system versus the hearing officer.
Yeah, I believe that if we can get the guy, I can never remember what to actually call him, the guy that comes here and some guy comes up with a ticket and he says, okay, hearing's up, you're guilty, pay the fine. I think, number one, it's gonna resolve a lot of these issues. And number two, it's gonna prevent a lot of these issues because people are gonna know, there's a lot of people in this town that have been getting away with a lot of stuff for a long time and they just keep doing it because they know they can. And as soon as we can put some teeth into these and say, no more, this is what's gonna happen in this town, just like any other town, I think it's gonna help your workload, our workload. I think it's gonna clear up a lot of these. It will bring income into the city. Not that I'm partial to the revenuers. I've gotten speeding tickets and stuff like that, and I know I'm paying the state of Oregon and I'm funding all that. But if, I don't want to go after anybody maliciously, but a lot of these are pretty bad, and if we have the hearings officer come in here and say, no, you're not doing that anymore, this is what you owe, and start paying fines, I think it will have a ripple effect to the community, and they'll say, yeah, well, Jimmy got busted for that, so I'm not doing it.
Well, I don't, sorry to interrupt. I don't think the debate is whether or not we need a hearings officer. That's already written in the code and we will need one. The debate is when and how. So Thursday, can it be part of your city manager comments?
Sure, I think it was in my report,
Okay.
but we can ask to add it to the agenda now.
I don't know if it particularly needs to be an agenda item to make them. I don't know if we need a motion to continue a contract that we already have in place. Yeah,
I think so, but I'm not an expert on that.
yeah.
Well, it wouldn't hurt.
Well, does he want to renew the contract or continue the current?
Well, how about this? I have the authority up to $10,000 to enter into a contract. And as long as this board recommends that we continue with Mr. Milliman, then I will make the comment unless otherwise anybody else has anything to say about it, then we will continue with Mr. Milliman. We will get all of his requirements and what that will take. And but mind you, we are losing our city clerk sometime this month, so.
Where you going?
way.
Until the hearings officer is in place, is there anything we can do in the meantime? Can we get the second letter out? I mean, some of these are like, I'm sure So no,
let's get that in place first. Because if there, what is the dates? If it's 2 weeks, what if, we have to, all of the cases that need to go to Mr. Milliman need to be on one day.
well, none of these have even had any letters sent out to them.
I understand that. I understand that.
So when somebody requests a hearing, then the hearings officer.
Correct.
Right, so in his scheduling, he can set up everyone who's asked for the hearing within a certain time period and say, okay, you're all on this day.
Correct.
So it's not like the person who's responding says, I want to have my hearing next Wednesday, 3 in the afternoon, right?
Correct.
The hearings-
Correct. We want to get them all in one day so that our $300 goes
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, I see a lot of multiple RVs, sewage smell. I mean, that's not acceptable. Hopefully we can get this guy on board and start.
But look at the dates too, also. I mean, some of these are very old. If you look at, I organized them by month, so
Mhm.
page 3 and 4 really is in the last
Right.
two months or so. It's not all of the other stuff. Although don't overlook some of these ones that have been reported. And like I said, the ones that are like 2402, 2470, 2465, those are all closed out.
And a lot of these, I'm sure, came with evidence, correct?
No.
Okay, well, there's,
And some of them are busybodies, and a friend of a friend called somebody because they're in California that said something was happening that may or may not have taken place. So if there are emergencies, we go check them out, and generally they're not emergencies and they're generally not what is being said. So the emergency stuff is not being overlooked.
Yeah, I get that. Where are we at? I do believe that the city had sent, I'm looking on like page 4, 2463. I'm believing that's probably, where the guy that has a towing yard behind the gas station moved it over to Railroad Street there. I believe that letter was issued and a cease and desist was posted in front of his gate. Where are we at with that guy?
He filed a CUP and planning is working with him.
What's CUP?
Conditional use permit.
Okay, doesn't that go to the planning? Okay, so he's appealed it essentially. Or asked for an okay to be there?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
When will they meet on that? Do you know?
It's there, he has 180 days to get the documents to the planner.
6 months. Okay.
Seems like that.
Yeah.
Cassie has her hand up.
Well, I think actually having I don't know why, it's a mind block for me that the guy here,
Hearing officer. Hearing
hearing officer is gonna help us a lot. I think that's probably for our committee a main priority to have somebody to say, no, sir, you're not doing that anymore. Here's your fine.
Well, the first step is still to get the initial letter to send to people and informing them that they are in violation. So that if they go oopsie and they fix it, then those are taken care of.
Yeah.
So we need to do we have a form letter that we've used in the past?
Yes.
Okay, so we can take that and can we go down the list of things that we've got, figure out which ones of those need to get a oopsie letter and send those out and maybe take care of some of these?
After we have the hearings officer,
Well, I would think if they fix it before the hearings, if they just go, okay, you're right, my trash fell over and they fix it, then we wouldn't have any need for a hearings officer on that particular case. Am I incorrect on that?
What about the code enforcement officer? Another person was gonna go hand out, if we find someone, they'll be the one going and putting, like, talking to people.
Council needs to discuss
They'll
that.
be, yeah.
No issue of hiring someone. That's a whole different.
Okay, so a procedure needs to be in place. And so you can check it off and say, okay, the council discussed it, they approved this, somebody went out and gave them a letter and then check off and maybe make some progress that way. Does that seem reasonable?
Well, to hire a code enforcement officer, council will need to do that. We need to put it out for that job position, and then Krista would then hire that person. We're looking at a month or two down the road.
So we
It's
can't,
approved by council.
so we can't send the letters out telling somebody, hey, this is your problem to fix and you need to fix it, or further steps may be taken. We can't send those out until everything else is in place.
That's cities.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I would think
Excuse me,
that
she's
you
had
could
her
at least
hand up.
send the letters out,
Wait,
and then by the second letter, they're in front of the hearings officer. The code enforcement,
Cassie has her hand up.
Cassie's got her hand up.
Let's see Cassie before.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is what is frustrating to me. We have a process that we all spoke about. We spoke in length at it last time, and we're, now it's like we're just circumventing that process that we took so much time to go over. Before it got to the hearings officer, we were allowing them a letter. And as Shania is saying, I feel like now we're saying, no, let's wait and start, after the hearings officer comes along. I understand the workload of the city, our new city manager is enormous. But if we aren't going to actually do the process, then I wish we would not spend so much time putting a process into place that we're not going to honor. Thank you.
I agree with her, but if we send the letter out tomorrow, you get on there and you just go through and do all the letters and you're giving them 10 days. And then they don't do anything, you give them another 10 days. So then we're gonna do nothing for, how long is it gonna take for the council to vote on this?
We only need a hearings officer if they appeal.
That's right. But, so what happens? They do nothing. And then, let's say,
And then we have a process in place for finding them, which is
Yeah.
just another.
and then, so
Letter.
what's that gonna do? I understand what Cassie is saying, but you write the letters and the council has got to pick a hearing officer. How long is that gonna take realistic?
Well, she just said that she's got the authority to do it. If we agree,
I'm,
then she would. do
Yeah,
it.
okay.
we need a planning commission. I mean, isn't that what you're saying? A planning officer? Personnel?
No.
Code enforcement. Code enforcement.
The issue was step one is to go out and get the documentation that the complaint is valid. They don't have the time to go get the documentation required to satisfy a letter that says, yes, you're in violation.
Is that what the code enforcement officer you wanted to hire is gonna do?
Go out into the field and present the case.
Because any letters you'd be sending out tomorrow, do you have the documented proof when they file the complaint?
I may have one at this point that has pictures.
And if you say yes, how old is that? So
Yeah.
before you send the letter out, you have got to go out and make sure that as of tomorrow, it's still a
Correct.
violation.
Correct.
So I understand what they're saying about send the letter out, but what if they have fixed it? So we send a letter out saying fix it, and they can say, all right, you guys, get your stuff together. It has been fixed.
Mhm.
So
Okay. When council hired the city manager, code enforcement was a huge priority for the job description. And I could at least think of 3 properties that you would just driving to town could see, snap a picture and know there's a problem and send a letter. Like airport, that's not taking some enormous amount of time to go sleuthing around for that. I don't understand why there needs, I don't know, maybe it's a council time priority for the city manager, maybe. Until we have a code enforcement officer, if that's even what council's gonna approve. Nothing can be, something needs to be done.
What
City managers have sent out letters, past city managers have done, I'm not saying everything needs to be done, but there's at least 3 properties I know are just pictures from the street. So,
Okay, I can just start sending out letters tomorrow and how it falls is how it falls, if that's what you would like me to do. I'm trying to prevent you from getting into a situation that is not successful. As successful, I'm giving you the reality. I'm sorry that somebody did a disservice to you by not prioritizing that money into a city clerk or into other ways, but you're getting into some human resource issues. This is an advisory board. I know you're on the council and this is becoming a little bit like the council needs to set the priorities on where my time is spent. I have done a lot of work to get your log, to get into a direction and give you the input based off of what I know in there. My assessment in 1 month has been, there isn't enough time to go out into the field. There's only so many hours in the day, and with other things like audit, like human resource issues, those are very, very pressing. I get this is a priority, but those things will actually land us in a lot of hot water if they're not done. So I am trying to do all of the things. And so maybe a council needs to set a work session and set a priority of where you want my time spent.
Question from the audience?
It's appropriate that I.
Yeah.
I think
that's the choice.
is that okay?
Say who you are.
It's a group decision. Go ahead, identify yourself.
Adam Hand. One thing that keeps crossing my mind as I listen to this conversation is that, unless I'm mistaken, when we set forward the job for city clerk, that 50% of their hours time was to be spent on code enforcement. So, and if you look at it from that perspective, I understand that she may not be here long, but the next person in that job is already half a code enforcement officer. So as we're hiring that person, maybe we prioritize those skills.
That wasn't my recollection for that position at all.
That's what I remember. So I mean, I would like to see how that position is funded, because if I remember, that's a good portion of it was for code enforcement.
So as a priority, is our priority now to get,
The hearings
I don't know why, I just had to settle. I'm gonna write it down. It's not my fault, I'm sorry. Been in the sun for 3 days. There you go. Is our priority to get a hearings officer to take care of some of these that we can send a letter to and they just disregard it? And he can take control from there, or to have a code enforcement person that I don't really know what he would do except for delivering the letters. If we send out a letter saying, you know, your garbage is in Mr. Jim's lawn. The next letter goes out, your garbage is still in Mr. Jim's lawn. The next letter goes out, says you have a court date in front of the hearings officer, which I reckon. And they come in and he says, we told you twice, Jim, keep your garbage out of Mr. Jim's lawn. Here's your fine. What as a committee here and what our recommendations to the city council could be, the hearings officer, we could pretty much have that in the bag according to the contract if it gets renewed. Which one is our priority, the code enforcement guy or the hearings officer? And I think the hearings officer would give not only city council, the city manager, and what we're trying to do here, a little more teeth than just a code enforcement officer. We're getting information from a lot of citizens in town. These pages that she put together proves that. We know what's going on. I think the letter process that you're in violation, number one, you're in violation, number two, third letter goes out. This is your court date. You need to be here and you're gonna stand in front of this officer and explain your case. I think that's a pretty good cut and dried idea. It wouldn't cost the city anymore. The code enforcement officer, I don't know what their salary is gonna be. I don't know what their insurance is gonna be. I don't know, how much it's gonna cost city council or city hall or city of Lakeside. But if this gentleman's ready to come in here every Thursday and listen to 10 or 15 cases and adjudicate fines or ways to fix it, that's gonna take a lot of load off the city manager. It's gonna take a lot of these and make them disappear. And I don't know, that's just the way I see it. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
I would just say that it's important to know that, from what I understand, it's going to be one day a month, $300. So not won't be every Thursday, but with that being said, there is no enforcement in here. So I fine you $100 a day and you flip me off and walk down the street, that's not going to clean up the property, and they're not going to pay. So that's something to know too, that there is no enforcement in here. There's fines, and I'm going to show cause you, I'm going to order you in, and I may or may not appear. And let's say I do appear, and he says, yeah, you got a trash heap here. And he says, okay, and walks out the door, and he charges you $100 and $100. Is that going to get it cleaned up?
Wouldn't that be a situation that we would bring the city attorney in to file charges or bring in the
Not
sheriff's
in here.
counter?
It's not in here. We don't have an enforcement in here. And so you put a lien on the property. What does that lien mean? It's a city lien. It's not a docketed court lien.
We have no teeth.
We don't have it.
How do we get teeth? Is it a hearings officer? Is it a code enforcement officer? Are we running around in a circle? How do we get teeth? How do we give her a way to do her job? How do we give the hearings officer a way to do their job?
Well, when Christie was recommending a code enforcement person, she was saying in place or along with like being a clerk to take some of that stuff away from you, be able to do more of this job, right? Is that what you were?
What I was saying is that it is such a workload that it could be full-time, and it will be enough that that I'm willing to take on the duties in order to fulfill code enforcement, because it is that much work.
That's something that council will have to, just, you can't have a clerk and a code enforcement officer with the budget that we have.
Right.
So it's.
Like Adam said, maybe we could put that in the job description. Part of your thing is gonna be covering.
Well, that's why,
Is that legal? I mean, can they do that?
The clerks are typically not trained in code enforcement.
and that's why I thought it was important that you recognize the fact that she's saying, forego another clerk for having. Yes, and that means she's then, but then you would have to deal with this. Well, you could say your designee will do it, but I think it's so important as we talk about fines, that means nothing to someone like up the road here, who they don't care. And if I charge them $100 a day for barking, what does that mean to them if they don't pay it? And we put a lien on their property, that's a city lien, it's not a docketed judgment that you can foreclose on. Now, they said that you could foreclose, but we want it cleaned up.
So does our code enforcement need to be, or have an amendment to it that would say, if you're not just gonna get away with this $100 a week, $100 a week, can it be backed up by, well, I'm not gonna say jail time, but the way the jail just flips, it's kind of tough. How do we get teeth in these? That's my question. How do we get the teeth that we need where she can do her job? We can come together and figure out how to do it. Where do the teeth come from? How do we get them?
What do other cities do?
Have a whole code enforcement team.
They do municipal court. And what I provided everybody, in case you didn't get a copy, is this, and I guess it was handed out before, but and I don't want to circumvent, efforts that have already been made, but the options for teeth are, circuit court.
And if we do bench warrants, I mean, without a police force, how do we do a bench?
I think somebody with more legal acumen than me to give you all of the particulars. That's not me.
All right.
And I hate to keep going back, but the way in the past they did is they would declare, once the council declared it a nuisance, it was automatically referred to the city attorney, who would file a complaint in circuit court. It would be heard, it becomes a docketed judgment, so that it's different than a lien. And there's a big difference between a docketed judgment and a lien. And then those are the ones that then the people would actually satisfy them.
When you go through circuit court, it says that the lien at that time is second to taxes. So when you go to close on a property, or even if you record it as it sits, the county doesn't have a duty to pay city liens. And so if it goes through circuit court, they would have a duty to pay.
And the title companies pick it up, but more importantly, it's picked up everywhere. And let's say you found out you own property here in Lakeside. If you own property also in Coos Bay, North Bend, anywhere in Coos County, because it's a docketed judgment, and you buy something, it's going to show up, and you can collect your money on it. Or let's say we find out they own property in Douglas County, we can transfer it to that county, like any real property they own.
I'd like to interject for a second. This was a discussion that was had before council when they were considering the ordinance they passed. An ordinance that was recommended to them by the prior city manager with the blessings of the city attorney. What you're arguing for here is a change to that ordinance. This isn't the place for that. So if you really want the ordinance to be changed, you need to take that up with the council and make a case for that.
Exactly, and I understand it. I just was clarifying for Dennis,
How to get
because
cheap.
I have argued from the get-go about being a docketed judgment going through circuit court. So I just wanted to make sure that Dennis knew that it's not a moneymaker for the city.
No, and I understand that. I just, we could sit here all day and say, oh, Mr. Jones' RV sucks and we don't like it. But if we don't have any teeth to enforce anything, we're gonna have these meetings every single night, and we're gonna be in the same place we were last week and the week before.
And I understand it's very frustrating because as I have previously continually always have and always will advocate for that we should go through this.
I agree, yeah.
But if, we're not at that point yet, but
So where are we?
Is there any different additional discussion of the process that we like to have?
I just want to know what her question is. Where do we go from here? I mean, do we have to change a city code? Do we have, how do we get cheap? That's not going to be my question. Where do we get cheap?
Do we need to go in front of the city council and see about making changes then before we can get any of this done to where it's going to be effective? I mean, I'm all for categorizing them by importance or length of time they've been recorded, but if just sending out a letter isn't, in everyone's opinion, that people are just going to shrug it off. I was going under the what I'd heard in the past that in the old days when the letters used to go out, that quite a few of them would just fix them at that point. However, if that's not true, then that would be a waste of time and effort to send out letters if the vast majority of the people are just going to throw them in the trash and disregard them. So what is our next step? Do we need to go back to the city council and try to bring about what Elaine was talking about? So that they can go through city court or?
The process the council put in place in the ordinance could be effective. We didn't. Council didn't design it, so it's like dead in the water. We have a process now where before we didn't even, it said we had a municipal court, we didn't have that, so all we could do was send a letter. But now we can send a letter, fine, the fines can get bigger if there's repeat offenses, and we also can abate, which is a huge thing that we couldn't do before. So if the committee's recommending that we change, that council change the ordinance, that's,
And I would suggest we try it, you know, we could try this and see what happens. And, you know, there are some that we know for a fact that they're not gonna clean up. We think the ones up on the street here is gonna actually clean up. So that would be a good test one to see if they're gonna, how that will out.
The Rainbow property.
I mean,
And then you get what they do here, where they write the letter, a 3-page or 4-page complaint saying, you put a lien on my property. So then what is the city going to do? You know, take the lien? I mean, that would be an option, to take the lien off, so then they claim that.
council.
Yeah, that's what the city would do it.
Right. I don't think there's any more productive discussion process at the moment. Our next item here is to set regular meetings. How often does this group want to meet?
I would think that would depend on how much, what changes here shortly, whether we get a code enforcement officer, whether we get a hearings officer or whatever I wrote down. If we start being able to be productive, then our meetings can be, more frequent. If we're still trying to plan what we're gonna do next, which seems like that's what we're doing, then, once or twice a month, the second week of the month, second Tuesday, Monday of the month, or whatever works for me. I mean, I'll be here every day if there's something to accomplish.
Well, I think if there's nothing to oversee, and the point of the committee was for oversight, I'm not comfortable with meeting more than once a month. Because
So
I
what do,
feel like at this point, we're not getting anything done.
so what do we have to see happen before we can have another productive meeting?
Well, if you guys want to recommend to council anything, that's all we can do. I don't even know if we can recommend anything to council in a work session. I know we can't recommend anything to the city manager. I think I can report the findings of the work session to council, but don't know the legalities of making recommendations to council from a work session on this.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be voted on.
Yeah,
It's
it's just
it's a consensus.
Yeah, I don't want to meet more than once a month. We're not-
If we're not doing anything productive, no.
It's just a matter of opinion at this point.
I have a question. So was anything decided about, is she going to send letters out or not letters out, or?
So I think that's what I need some clarity on is my understanding of the committee was an advisory board, but then also it sounds like you guys are overseeing all of the individual cases.
That wasn't my understanding of this.
We were just gonna try to help prioritize them and make recommendations, what we thought the citizens in our town needed help with.
No.
That's what I thought.
No, I think the point of the committee was make sure that things were moving along.
Yes,
Right,
that was my opinion, that we were gonna try to find a way to actually start getting things done. Because it had stalled out for so long.
Yeah, I don't have the actual charge of the committee in front of me at the moment. That was something that we went through and discussed at our first meeting. And yeah, it was, the oversight aspect was supposed to be more of a broad, how is it working? Not, okay, on this particular case, what's the next step? It's not at that level.
Okay,
Now, the resolution says, whereas Mayor Mark Crouch has recommended the creation of a working group to facilitate, lead, and communicate the changes and enhance the follow-up code enforcement needs within the community, which the city council has supported and endorsed. And so, whereas the city council is prepared to take the next step in creating positive change within the community for the benefit and health of the committee, now therefore the city council creates the Community Code Enforcement Committee, which is expected to serve for 1 year and is dedicated to enhancing the quality of life for our citizens. And then it goes down through a bunch of things that where they hopefully do educate citizens, conduct comprehensive surveys of historical and current citizen complaints to discern optimal strategies, collaborating with municipal staff, augmenting and improving code compliance, supporting the city staff, and then pinpointing properties posing compliance issues, overseeing the city's initiatives to enhance code compliance and proposing adjustments to the strategy, providing monthly reports to the city council regarding the progress of city endeavors in advancing code compliance. And that was the resolution adopted signed by the mayor and at that time, recorder manager. So that's the resolution 2409, which creates our committee.
Right, and those last points that you've read on what the committee's actions.
Right. So, where's that leave us? Deciding on when the next meeting will be, or waiting until after the council gets a report to see what the council input is, or where we go from here?
Well, the request is to set a regular meeting date. And so I'm hearing a consensus that we're not making real progress, we're not finding something real meaty to dig into, that no more than once a month. And if there's work to be done, and more than that, some of the similar working groups in the city historically have had a standing monthly calendar meeting day. And then additional days if needed.
Okay.
So we might want to do that.
I work
Yes, Cassie.
second Monday of every month. That way you're not worried about your bills.
Cassie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify then, if we are not going to be having meetings more than once a month that we set, I agree 100% with what both you and Ms. Wood have said. Then I just want to find out on the 19th, when we had a meeting scheduled of this month, are we now saying we're not going to be having that meeting?
Be here. I'm gonna be gone, so that's my input.
I'll be everybody.
So the first Monday
Yeah,
of
well,
September is Labor Day. So we'll want to do after that.
Yeah, the 19th won't work for me.
Okay, so we're not going to honor that scheduled meeting then? Is that what I'm hearing? I just want to make sure we're not doing that one.
Yeah.
I'm out. I can't be here on the 19th, so that's my input.
Neither can I.
Thank you.
I say we give council another regularly scheduled meeting before we meet again. So the topic of the clerk's gone, trying to figure out things from there.
So wait till September's council meeting, till after that.
That would be my recommendation.
After August council meeting or September's council meeting? After September 12th.
Yeah.
The next Monday after that meeting would be what?
At 6:30 again, 6:30?
Unless we have an emergency session, I heard that.
The next item is to discuss the city manager's role at these meetings.
I just wanted to. I just would like to know what the expectation is so that I can deliver what it is that you're expecting. I heard last time it was the log and having things organized so that you can see what kind of complaints are coming in.
Good job.
Yes,
That's nice.
looks good.
So just going forward, is it that you just want a report? Do you want an updated log in a report? Is it input into, this continuing draft for Citizen Code Enforcement Committee? Is that done? Are we not working on that? Or just,
I think what Nikki said about having. You got regarding disposition, maybe another box over here with 1, 2, 3, first letter sent, second letter sent, just a checkbox. And so we know where we're at. You know where you're at, just so, this is a very compiled list. I'm sure it took a lot of time and effort. I would like to know, like the mess at 245 Rainbow, has a letter been sent out? Is there anything we can do to help? That's the main thing. Can we help? I can volunteer some time. I can go take pictures for you. If you call me up and say, hey, give me some pictures of this property, what's going on? I can do that. I'll help any way I can.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So can I. If you want pictures taken and I can find the place, I'll take pictures.
I view you as being one of the stakeholders in these meetings. Because it's really easy for council or a committee to say, hey, city manager, go do these things. But you have to be telling us what's possible and what resources are required to do that. And, like you said this evening, sure, you could send letters out to everybody on this log you have, but that's not going to lead to much success.
Some of them
We have to be
maybe cleaned up.
prepared to succeed with the process to implement it. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna need your guidance on this too. I mean, this is all new. We're all learning at the same time, and anything that we can do to help and get our ducks in a row, it's gonna make it more effective.
Could I have some input into the body of the meat and potatoes of that then?
I think you should, because
Yeah.
because you have such a key role in the implementation.
Thank you. So building out our infrastructure to make code enforcement successful is kind of goes back to our resources. Where can we send people for things? Are there scrappers? Are there, do we have people that are willing to, here's who you can call for cheap that will come help clean up your property. Resources are going to be really important as we do this. When I send out a letter, what I would like to have with it is, here is resources for you to be successful. And if that, we also have the cleanup day coming. I called about that today for, is it September 13th, I believe, but they will confirm tomorrow. So we want to get the word out to people early that your free day is coming. Let's put out as much information as we can to help people be successful. Other, thoughts about how we can, it's a long ways to the transfer station. Is there any way, that there's recycling and there's other avenues for people to clean up their property, other ways to get stuff to transfer stations? Is there churches? Is there, volunteer groups? And
Me and Cassie are working on that, a list of resources. For
okay,
you to have here and send out or whatever you want.
I think that would help make this much more successful than just sending out a letter and saying, doing it. Because what I'm afraid of happening is that somebody will come and say, well, I can't afford it. I would love to clean it up, but I can't afford it. Then what do we do?
Or an elder.
Or an elderly couple that just literally
can't.
can't. And so if we have, what is that process? Do we have somebody, okay, you have a hardship application, fill this out. And this committee says, all right, our committee, this is worthy of our committee going to and taking care of. And it's a, like a one-time thing that we're helping correct, a situation that has gotten out of hand. But it's, we keep a log of who's used our service. And then maybe they get like a one time and the next time it's got to be somebody else or something like that. So that we are helping be a service rather than just looking like we're putting fines out and trying to lien people's properties and things.
We used to do that with the Lions Club. We'd go out and once a month we'd find a place that needed help and we'd just go out and do it. So that's, maybe I can reach out to some of those people, Rotary Lion, I'll reach out to some of those people and see what I can find out.
That'd be great.
Veterans.
Yep.
I know they did have that here at least once that I remember. There was somebody that lives over on 8th Street who was an older lady who was a habitual hoarder. And they put out a call for help and a bunch of people showed up and they cleaned up the yard. So it can be done. And maybe Facebook could be used for something besides sniping at each other.
That was good. That's good. I like that.
So my next steps will be to contact Mr. Milliman and make sure that the contract is okay. We'll go ahead and start that and what all he is going to need for the cases, if they should go that far to him, what the warrant process is. Should we need that? What is required? Also, after speaking to the sheriff, he gave me one of his sticky cards. We need sticky cards printed for towing vehicles. We were just putting letters on cars, I guess, in the past, and that's not, there's a word. So we need to have the proper wording for what goes on the stickers so that we can get those ordered. Having all of the things ready to go so that it's right, legal, and successful.
I'll put them on if you give them.
He'll be like Paul Revere, right by his vehicle and just slap it.
No, I just walk up and go, hey, there you go.
So yeah, you have to take a picture of it and all
Oh,
of
yeah,
that, yeah.
And in my check with the different. One time, there were certain ones that they would do it for a certain amount, or they would do it for scrap, and then maybe even order sign,
And that was my other question, is the towing company. I did have a towing person come to me and say that they will haul off all the vehicles for scrap or from the owner. There's a conflict of interest there, so I don't know if that's a contract that we put out as an RFP. If that is, and that's something.
Is that the person that got the 6-month abatement on the property on 8th Street?
I declined to answer.
Okay.
and there, just for Nikki, there's other organizations. You might check with the schools and see if they have to do community service still to graduate. That for so many hours, that might be like a weekend that they can.
If you guys have any ideas, feel free to shoot them out of.
Sure.
It's always good.
And then when we did the playground equipment years ago, Diane got the men's basketball team to come out and help as a community service project. Maybe that's something that they could do too.
That's a tough one. I guess it depends on the situation, putting kids in scenarios like unsafe scenarios. I don't know.
I mean, I'm talking about maybe mowing one on the.
Yeah, little tiny things like that, definitely.
Well, whatever volunteers, whatever this committee looks like, if that's where you want to go with it, we would cover with insurance.
And the last item on the agenda is probably the scariest. Miscellaneous discussion.
I think we did that.
We already did that.
I just want to clarify, so what you said you're gonna do, but so no letters will go out. I mean, we talked about it and then we moved on, so I want to make sure we're all clear, no letters are gonna go out at this point.
I understood that you guys were gonna come up with a letter structure before it goes out. But I thought because we have a new ordinance that we are now referencing it in a different way, that was the last meeting and you were offering to type up the letters, no?
We have a letter that says.
Right.
So what,
There is one letter that went out subsequent to the adoption of ordinance 24-01. I actually wrote it, so
Yeah, I'll help.
I can share it with you if you like.
I understood it, that it needed to be that this committee was going to
That was not my understanding.
okay.
I was under the impression the city had letters already, and
We do.
Yeah.
But with a new ordinance, I understood that we had some discussion about writing letters, and so,
Remember, honestly, you probably have a better memory of that than I do.
okay.
So there's a
That
lot.
was my misunderstanding then.
There's a lot of ordinances in here. There's a lot of ORS ordinances. If it's a basic letter, but there's inserting to you're violating ORS 095609, or whatever, or our city code ordinance. That would probably be the only changes I could really see. It's like, this is your violations, and then it's just a regular letter, so it's name, address, ordinances, bam, simple.
And so the draft doesn't need to be complete before we go forward. The Citizen Enforcement Committee enforcement process.
that wouldn't even need to be referenced in any letter that's violating the ordinance.
I understand that.
I don't think this group needs to approve the wording of the letters.
Okay.
It's probably better than that at that time, that way, like, things out, that's your job.
So my question is, just so I'm clear on it, what are we going to decide, everything you listed, and you're gonna follow up, and all this kind of stuff, is any letters going out yet? Are we waiting?
It sounds like I'm sending letters out to all of these.
Is that correct? Is that what we decided? I thought we were gonna wait until there was a hearings officer in place, so.
See, that's what I want to clarify.
Right.
So we don't walk away thinking different
Right.
things. I understood that we weren't going to do all of them because they all have to be investigated, but the three that Nikki talked about, that it's obvious.
Oh,
Maybe those, so I don't know, I want clarification to
Maybe,
make sure.
yeah, pick the ones that are the most obvious and the easiest to address.
and send them out to see what happens. I
Yeah,
mean, you don't have much to lose. If they say no and throw it in the trash, we're still where we were. Oh, Nikki.
And she has her hand up.
Thank you. I think I'm with Elaine. I'm a little confused here. We just need to, I want to know yes or no, are letters going out, are they not going out? But also, if we are just sending them to some of them, then we do need to have our priorities in place that we agreed to, in my opinion, which is public health and safety, sorry, first. And then we can go through and maybe investigate some of the others. But if they clearly are a violation or a threat to public health and safety, then I think those are kind of no-brainers. They should be receiving a letter. And then we know that it's already going to go to a hearings officer, probably. No one's going to clean up Rainbow in 24 hours or 2 weeks. So are we not going to send letters to the most obvious and get this process rolling? Because if we're waiting for a hearings officer, then we're really talking about not even really beginning this then until after the September 12th meeting. I'm sorry, city council meeting.
Yeah, I'd really like to see us send out those letters. I mean, they came in and talked to us. It sounds like their property's washing away. They came in and asked for help. I mean, I would like to see something done, just,
Yeah, and the only reason we would need a hearings officer is if by chance they wanted to appeal it.
right,
If they don't appeal it, then we can follow through the ordinance that we've laid out. And find them.
so can we
So-
send out a letter to
Worst
them?
case, in my eyes, worst case scenario, if we don't have a hearings officer in time, which sounds like she's gonna be reaching out to Gary and hopefully get that ball rolling fairly quickly. Worst case scenario, we have to put it on hold and resend the letters once we have a hearings officer. But if they don't appeal, I mean,
And that's why I wanted to clarify, because we moved on and I didn't get a clear of what we're doing. So definitely not all, you can't, because they have to be investigated, but I agree, the three worst ones maybe. That we declare a help, and we all know what.
We all don't.
Yeah, that was a dumb thing, I didn't, so. But we're not giving addresses, but there's
Right.
the one up here on.
Well, we can just, can.
2446.
24.
The property on Rainbow is being cleaned right now and being taken care of.
It is?
not fully.
Not fully, but they are working on it. She does not own the property. She's trying to get ownership of the property. She has gone in and already started moving stuff out.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, that's a step in the right
And
direction.
she's been there almost every day.
So we still send a letter to somebody
Yeah.
who's working on it?
Well, she,
To the owner of the property.
she petitioned to. She doesn't own the property and she may not own the property. She petitioned to see about getting the lien removed to council and
Oh,
who knows
okay.
where that's gonna go. So until then, yeah,
That's the right way to do it.
I don't know.
So do we want to send a letter to that one or just wait and see if she gets it cleaned up or?
Yeah. That's what the.
Well, we can wait till after Thursday and see what happens,
Okay.
right?
I can't tell you which one's the one that I know of from the descriptions here, but I can give you the address in private and you could probably figure it out. I'm not.
What's the
I
issue?
can't. So on North Lake Road, on Airport,
Mhm. And 2429.
and those are. the one.
Well, I'll tell you, 2485 was for this building,
For what?
That's this building.
for this building.
Oh,
I know 24-30, they were in here. Yes, with pictures and at the last meeting.
that's address. Yeah.
Or RH address, oh no, it's one above it. There's 2 24-30s.
There is.
Oh,
same.
okay,
Those are
Same.
so that's addressed for
July.
both of them.
Those dates.
What is RH?
That's the
June.
initials of the last city manager.
Oh,
So I have 2446.
Also 2430A. There's 2430, 2430, and 2430A.
I can't tell you if 24-32 is the correct address that I'm thinking of, but it sounds like all the problems going on there.
Yeah, that was Mike's, I think. What's the other one that you named? The other number?
2446. Oh, our building?
Probably
2485.
24-50, 24-51 could probably be the next place. Property, I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely.
24-61 could be the North Lakes one. 24-63, I can tell you is probably on the corner of Airport.
Yeah.
okay, so you're going through and let's start on the first.
I'm just saying the obvious ones that like,
Yep,
you
yep.
can see with your eye,
Okay,
yeah.
but I want to mark them for the numbers. So
Okay.
which ones are we going through? Starting on the first page?
Well, the first page is kind of going back.
Yeah, so we're not gonna do anything on that. The second page, she said
46 is rainbow.
okay, 46, that one.
But we're gonna wait until after Thursday, correct?
And what else?
And then the other one you said was,
2450, 2451. Could possibly be North Lake.
okay, and if it is, then we're gonna go ahead, right?
Sorry,
So she says 2450 and 2451. If that's the one on North Lake they're talking about, then we'll send letters to them.
correct.
I think 2461 is associated with the same thing.
Some of these are repeat
Right.
addresses.
That's why I don't know. So that's
I
what
know.
I'm saying. You could probably go through and discern that.
Is 2462 the same one?
Probably.
Demolished RV, hazardous waste.
I mean,
disposal.
DEQ has an open case with them, so it wouldn't be that hard to get evidence for sending letters for the city to go after.
Now. 2469,
Yeah.
is that one we're doing?
I can see a 2469.
It's on the
Yeah.
third page.
And that's when I have all the evidence you need for.
I know, and like I was explaining to you, it sounds like that's a therapy dog.
No.
2469. Where are we?
No, it would be worth for her to come and present a case.
Correct, yeah.
Is that railroad? Is it the railroad?
What?
No. Well,
Yeah.
which one is 2460?
69,
I don't,
2469 is what we're talking about on the third page.
For sending letters.
Yeah, please.
yeah, I don't need to get any evidence for that. I can play it off my cell phone
Well,
and listen.
Yeah, we have a
Several
lot of
hours.
evidence for
Yeah,
for
there's
that.
lots of-
2482 sounds like airport.
Yeah, actually, I think that is down,
5 RVs all using sewer power.
that is, I believe that is down up to the other side of the
Balron.
railroad.
Oh, I think just the point with circling these is that these are very obvious things that
Right.
end up letting them out, so.
We have,
See what
If
happens.
I'm sorry, if I understand it correctly, we're talking 3 or 4 places. That all of these are coming up.
I think there's 6, and some of them I have grouped together, when it looks like,
They're multiple.
they're this. Yeah, I've grouped them together if they're the same one, but either way, it's one will just go out, so between 3 and 6. I'd say.
We'll see how
That's a
happens.
start. Yeah. All right. Yeah, good. 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 I feel like that way that we're at least taking a step forward and accomplishing something. I think that's a good idea.
Yep. Like I said, I like being clear. I like to know when we leave that we've accomplished. So excuse me if I speak this way. But, so you're gonna send out, we have potentially 3 to 6 letters you're sending out. Because we're not meeting again until September 16th. You're going to follow this procedure, and if they don't, we're gonna go the second step. We're not gonna wait. We're gonna follow the timeline in the ordinance. You're gonna do the first step. And if they don't file for the thing, we're gonna order them in. If the council approves the hearing officer, we're gonna go ahead and set. So when we come on the September 16th, there is a chance that we'll get a report on where those 3 to 6 are sitting, right?
That is the intention. Again, with the time, I'm really struggling to understand the priorities with the other duties, so I will do my very best. Again, I mean, this was weekend work, so.
And any of us
We appreciate it.
need would, I would be happy to come in.
Yeah, if you give me a template, I can type and print letters.
Well, I think it's the fact finding.
I might be able to help with some of
I think
it.
it's just some of the
Okay.
fact findings. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I will get a hold of the hearings officer. I just want to understand that should it be appealed, what he needs for that case to be built. We'll send the letters and build the case.
And hopefully it will be something, just the evidence and. But you'll have to find out if you need the witnesses and, that's what you have to find out what he needs and wants. The procedure.
Right, because I'm unclear on how what he needs in order for it to be presented to him, what is required. I know it's just a Zoom link, but how is that presented? Do we, how all of it works? I mean, I just know the basics right now for what he is requiring.
And then. Hopefully, this is open discussion, we're miscellaneous discussion, so where everybody knows. So is the hope that the council will consider hiring a planning, code enforcement person, versus another clerical staff for you?
That is my recommendation. It's money better spent, not better spent. It's just the needs are more in code enforcement and I can take on the other duties. So
With the current staff, so that would not be unrealistic staff. I just wondered, so I'm not asking questions outside, so everybody doesn't know what we're asking.
Am I report to council from our meetings? Am I reporting that we're recommending that, or are you recommending that to council yourself?
I could recommend that.
Based on what the committee is hoping to accomplish, it would be money well spent.
It would, yeah.
And like I says, I would hope that the council would commend her for willing to forego extra help, because everybody says, I need help, but she's willing to step up and do it, to do what's best for the citizens to get this done.
I think the fact that she's working through her lunch and not taking lunch is.
You have to take a 30-minute lunch.
Say that. Great. Cool. Well, we made progress. That's good. Sounds positive. Sounds pretty black and white. That's a good thing. There's still some growing pains and everybody's gonna feel them, but we're getting somewhere. We're a lot farther we were than the first day we met.
That's true. Okay. Are we done then?
Anything else for miscellaneous discussion? Okay. Hearing none. Hearing none, we're adjourned at 8:06.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is my phone number.
Okay.